Bring us up to speed on where we are on blockchain, on digital finance, where we are, because there have been some bumps along the road. I mean, there have been some scandals along the road. Some people have lost some money. Is it slowing things down?
Not really. I mean, I think in many ways, FTX and many of the other issues that we've had to deal with over the last year have definitely had an impact. And, you know, crypto is a very broad term, but I think of the space really as more around technology. There's no doubt in my mind that we're going to have a digital version of the US dollar. It just makes sense. There's no doubt in my mind that blockchain technology will continue to be implemented in most of the big financial institutions. It makes things faster. It makes them cheaper. And in this day and age, having a digital version of the US dollar or most major fiat currencies just makes total sense.
As an investor in these, I'm curious, how much of that is consumer facing and how much of that is, as it were, in the plumbing? Yeah. You can have the banks use a blockchain for their transactions and things. You have the Fed do that. That's different from selling it to the public.
Well, as you know, we've been an early investor in Circle, which is US digital coin. And that's very much business to business. It's about the large institutional payments, which traditionally, you know, have gone from bank to bank, and you and I have waited 2 or 3 days to have those types of transactions take place. With blockchain, with the internet, with digital currency, you know, using USDC, these things can be done anytime, 24/7, instantaneously, and without an intermediary. And I think the dramatic impact this will have on kind of the treasury functions of corporates and financial institutions around the world over the next 5 to 10 years will be significant. And I think, to me, the positive of everything that went on with FTX, for example, is that people now understand the difference between offshore and onshore. And Circle, which again is US digital coin, operates within the US regulatory perimeter. Really embraces regulation. Any sound business wants sound regulation, is very transparent about what the portfolio is backing the USDC, which is cash and short-term treasury bills where a dollar is a dollar is a dollar. And I think, David, at the end of the day, is it best for our government, for the Federal Reserve, to be developing the digital currency, or the private sector, people like Circle, to develop it and then have it properly regulated? And I think that's the way most technical innovations, whether it's the FedWire or the SWIFT payment system, have come about.
So from your perspective, which is a terribly valuable one, is it best to leave the regulation right where it is right now because it works basically for people like you and your companies, it works fine? Or are there things that could be regulated that would actually help you, that would buttress your business? Or is there some other way of doing this? What do you think is the right way to go for the U.S. government?
So I think there's a couple of buckets here. I think, number one, operating onshore within the U.S. regulatory perimeter is critical. And I think that was writ large during FTX when people realized what was going on in the Bahamas outside of the U.S. regulatory perimeter. Since then, the market share of USDC, which is within that perimeter, has dramatically improved relative to Tether, which is offshore, somewhat murky in terms of what's in that portfolio. So we're seeing the impact already. The next step in this is, who is the regulator? So right now, the states are regulating payments, and will it be the Fed? Will it be the SEC? And what's the next step for the federal government in terms of assigning regulatory responsibility? We embrace getting those decisions made in going forward with, frankly, a more transparent, more regulated environment. Proper regulation, good regulation, strong regulation is what good, strong companies want, and I think it will help us get to the next step in digital currencies.
There's a central bank digital currency, and by that I mean the Fed for this purpose, because China, we know, is developing one, Europe is developing one, but a central bank digital currency for the Fed, is that important? Is it valuable? Why do they need to be in that business?
I don't think they do, and I think we believe that USDC can operate alongside a central bank digital currency or without a central bank digital currency. We think it's much more typical of China, where the government would do the technology and do the developments, and it's much more typical of the U.S. economic system, where the private sector develops the technology. That's where the real innovation is, and it's up to our regulators, the Fed in this case, to provide effective, strong regulation.
Do we need legislation?
I'm sure we do over time. We need to resolve who's regulating what pieces of technology here.
Do we need to be concerned about a competition internationally? I mean, as I said, China is developing a central bank digital currency. A lot of people question that about whether people are going to trust that because of the nature of the government. But Europe also is. Do we need to be worried about being behind some other countries?
I think it's important for the U.S. to be a leader here. I don't think they're falling behind at all. And I think some of the developments we've talked about in terms of USDC are very competitive right now.
So what's next for your operation, USDC? What's the next mountain to climb?
Well, I think what we're seeing is everything we're investing in has some form of tech-enabled structure. And I think with some of the values in tech coming down over the last year or so, what people have not realized is that almost every investment in financial services has tech enabling with it. It's the insurtech space. You know, the insurance companies are really developing a lot of technology. When we invested in Marshberry, it has a tech enablement. When we invested in DPL, it has tech enablement. So I think what's happening in tech is just a critical part of everything that we're investing in.
So let me try to take a bridge too far, if I could. AI and Chat GPT or chatbots. Is there a role for that? We saw actually Goldman this week say, let's stay away from that.
This is, I think we're at the very early stages. I will tell you, my alma mater, my beloved Colby College, through a terrific grant from the Davis family, has a major. This is a liberal arts school in Maine, and they have a major in artificial intelligence that began about a year ago. We have to realize how important this is, but I think it's just an indication of how early in the stage and how important this is. As an investor, this is an area that's very, very, very interesting.
Is that interesting?
Absolutely.
You're interested in investing in AI right now?
Oh, absolutely.
That's fascinating.